Welcome back to the Kino Cave, everybody, and today it is the second cab off the rank for the MCU Kinospective, and today we're doing the forgotten MCU film until new Captain America, I guess, The Incredible Hulk. Before we jump into it, guys, please do like this video if you end up liking it, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one in the near future. That's right, I'm doing this at the start now. Don't get scared. Also, quick disclaimer, I'm sorry if I sound a bit shit in this video. I am at the back end of a head cold. That was pretty nasty. I apologize, but I gotta get this video done. So, I've always been a big Hulk fan, and my dad was also apparently a big Hulk fan. He's like the only superhero that my dad knows properly, because he watched the show in the 70s, which we're going to talk about a lot. But I've always liked the Hulk. I loved the 2008 film from Ang Lee. It's really weird looking back on it, but I've always loved that one, and I liked the 2008 movie when it came out, and I just love the Hulk in general. I think that depressed guy who's constantly wrestling with a really angry version of himself that he's kind of scared of speaks to me somehow. So I love the Hulk, and I have always liked this movie. I've always liked The Incredible Hulk. I'll get to my review in a minute, but like with these Kinospective videos, we are here to discuss how this film got made before we get into our review. So we have a bit of an understanding of the film going into our review. For starters, Kevin Feige and some of the other producers wanted this movie to be fun. Fun was the name of the game. They wanted a fun movie. I think they probably got a bit of pushback from Ang Lee's interpretation. This is apparently kind of a sequel. It's one of those weird bubble moments where it could be a sequel, it could not be. We don't really know yet. It depends on how it goes. But they definitely wanted it to be a little bit less intense, a little bit less depressing than Ang Lee's film, which focuses a lot on the trauma of the Hulk and what Bruce Banner actually has to go through. The stuff about the character I find more interesting. But anyway, the name of the game was fun. And so Kevin Feige and the producers chose Louis Leterrier. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. He's a French guy. Louis Leterrier was chosen to direct the film because they liked his kind of feeling of momentum with his camera movements. They liked this kind of feeling that the camera is always in motion, constantly moving, which I quite like as well. I like that style of camera movement. I like to keep the camera moving, you know. I think still shots can get kind of boring. They can get kind of boring to film. They can get kind of boring to watch unless the dialogue is insanely good. So I totally get that decision of keeping this movie in motion, and I think it works for the Hulk as well. This is a guy who's constantly on the run, so we gotta keep it moving with this film. And so I totally get the choice to pick Louis Leterrier. If you don't know his body of work, it is kind of insane. He's done a bit of everything. I was like, this is definitely he's a French dude, you know, with a big French accent on him. He's definitely done some weird artsy black and white dudes standing around in a black coat smoking. I basically thought he was going to try and be Jean-Luc Godard, but he's not. He's done a bunch of action movies and kind of schlocky movies, at least for Hollywood anyway. That's what he's been doing. I totally get the choice to pick him for a fun action thriller movie. Leterrier refused initially because he thought it was a sequel to the Ang Lee film, but he eventually joined on when he realized he could kind of make his own kind of thing out of it and not make a sequel. And jumping straight into the casting, Edward Norton also refused this film because he had a lot of reference for the Hulk comic books and he loved the show as well. Edward Norton, it's been said about him that he's a bit of an intense guy when it comes to Hollywood productions. He kind of likes to do his own thing, and we will get into that in this film because he can join on as an actor, like a lead actor or whatever, and he can kind of then take on the role of director, writer, producer, stunt guy, everything. He kind of turns it into a one-man show sometimes. And I think he's probably softened on that kind of thing since. But, I mean, he even played a parody of himself in Birdman as this actor who is just kind of uncompromising and tries to change a project to suit his own vision rather than just listening to a director or a producer. So Edward Norton didn't want to take this on at first. He didn't think that they could do it justice. Superhero movies are kind of hit and miss at the moment. You know, Spider-Man worked. Daredevil, even though I love it, didn't really work at the time. Ang Lee's Hulk was a bit divisive, you know, it was a bit not so great. He joined in the end when he met with Leterrier, and whatever Leterrier said, it got Norton to join on board. With Norton, they wanted a successor to Bill Bixby, a point that will become very apparent as we go on in the behind the scenes and into our review of The Incredible Hulk. They wanted the successor to the 70s show. You know the way people say that like Batman and Robin from 1997 is kind of like a sequel to the 60s show, or to pick another Batman thing, because why not? I love Batman. The Arkham games are kind of a successor to the animated series. It could almost take place in that same world. They kind of tried to do that with The Incredible Hulk in 2008. Remember, like I said in my Iron Man video, we're not doing a cinematic universe yet. We are teasing it. Because, you know, Tony Stark does show up at the end of this movie, but this is very much like, this is its own thing currently. We have no guarantee yet that we're going to do an Avengers, we're going to do this whole thing. That kind of comes in with Iron Man 2, 2 years later. This film was in production before Iron Man even released or anything like that. Very much this whole setting up of a universe thing came at the back end of the production of this movie. They kind of wanted a sequel to Ang Lee's Hulk, because that movie made money, I guess. I'm actually not even sure, but I'll put the box office up here. They definitely wanted to homage the 70s show, and I think kind of make this sort of the spiritual successor to that. It could almost be a sequel to it, which again becomes very apparent when I get to my review. Now, something I liked about watching the behind the scenes of this movie and seeing some of the footage of the collaboration between all of these people is Leterrier and Norton are clearly giving it their all. They're super passionate. They are just acting out scenes together, like, you know, getting into the nitty gritty of it and getting involved in the entire process. Maybe a little too much from, you know, certain parties. But it's great to see the passion. It's great to see people come together and not just go, okay, you stand on the X and I'll stand over here next to this green screen, and then we'll just say our lines back and forth with each other, go have a coffee, and $1 billion. So it's great to see, you know, actors get stuck in and get really passionate about this thing. And I feel like I'm ragging on Norton a little too much. I do like him as an actor. You know, he's great in Fight Club, obviously. He's great in Birdman. I love him in Glass Onion. That's kind of the more recent thing I know him from. So I love Edward Norton as an actor, but I kind of have to talk about this because I watched all the behind the scenes, and he talks like an executive producer. Like, and not like the executive producer that's just like a money man, like an Avi Arad. He talks more like a Kevin Feige. He acts more like Kevin Feige than Kevin Feige does in these behind the scenes. He's very much getting involved in the story, the process of bringing the Hulk to life. Like, he wanted to act out the Hulk scenes himself so that the visual effects department had like a visual reference for how the Hulk should act. He's making all these creative decisions, and he's collaborating, which is the nice way of putting it, with Leterrier to kind of bring together this film. He talks like a writer sometimes, he talks like a director, and obviously as an actor. His role in this really feels like an executive producer who just so happens to also be acting in the movie. Getting on to some of the other talent in this film, because there's a lot of talent in this film. The other actors, unlike Edward Norton, showed up and were like, this sounds fun, let's fucking go, let's do this. Liv Tyler seemed to be really excited about this part and, you know, loved being the character of Betty. She apparently connected with the character quite a bit, and as Edward Norton said at one point, Betty has this ability to look at the Hulk and see Bruce Banner still. An ability that not a lot of us have, because Edward Norton does not have a very Hulk-like face. But he praised Liv Tyler and said that she managed to harness that ability to look at the Hulk's face and see Bruce. And I think Liv Tyler definitely understood the assignment with that. She is definitely giving it her all as Betty. You know, this is back, we were kind of still in peak Liv Tyler, you know, Lord of the Rings. So Liv Tyler was definitely giving it her all at this point. And Tim Roth also, I love watching him in the behind the scenes of this because he's just kind of having a great time and complaining about how fucking old he is, even though he's like 40. Like, I know that that's old to be like doing stunts and stuff in a big action movie, but I mean, all the current Marvel actors are fucking 40 and they're still doing action scenes. But he was also excited to be the bad guy in a superhero movie for his kids, which is a running theme with superhero films a lot of the time, is that they join because they want their kids to go see a movie with them in it. But I think in some cases, Christian Bale, um, he's kind of phoning it in, and well, not even phoning it in. It's just the movie lets them down. But with Tim Roth, he seemed really excited to play this character and take on this character. So I love seeing him in the behind the scenes of this movie and seeing him just be excited about being in a movie that's very different from any other movie that he's done. And of course, William Hurt, probably the most like kind of classic actor to be put into this film. He said he wanted to make a bold statement, whatever that means, as Thunderbolt Ross. But whatever that means, I think it works. You know, he really wanted to do the whole thing with the mustache and stuff like in the comic books. And there's not much footage of him in behind the scenes, but when there is, he seems like a very formidable actor. He seems like the type of actor that's a bit rigid, a bit kind of intense sometimes. It's interesting watching him work because he very much has his own ideas, and instead of being like an Edward Norton where he's kind of pushing his ideas onto Leterrier, Leterrier is more giving him direction, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to do what I want with it, and you're not going to do a damn thing about it because I'm William Hurt. And I totally understand that. I mean, when you got an actor like this coming in, you kind of just have to roll the camera and let them do it the way they want to do it, because whatever idea that they have in their head is probably going to be better than what you've got. Time to get into the design of the Hulk himself. The probably most important, well, not the most important, but one of the, biggest aspects of the Hulk in general, if you're going to do a Hulk movie, you got to get the design right. You got to get the shade of green right. You got to get the size. You got to get the kind of build properly. You want him to look more like a bodybuilder? Do you want him to look more kind of realistically big? Or like Leterrier wanted, he said he wanted something uber human, like 0% body fat. This guy is ripped to shreds. Leterrier wanted him to look more like a linebacker than a bodybuilder. Someone who could be fast as well as strong. So the character designer for the Hulk in this film is Aaron Sims, who I think he worked for Marvel at the time. And this is before like Ryan Meinerding just came in and designed everything for us. He did a bit of that, but we're very much in the territory of, individual character designers. And he was particular about the height of the Hulk. He felt that Lou Ferrigno at 6'5" was obviously a bit too short, but of course he's a real man, so he can only be so tall. And he felt that Ang Lee's Hulk was actually too big at 15 feet tall. So big that it kind of became unrealistic. Like, he's taking out, like, tanks like it's nothing and all that, and there's a bit of an unrealism to it, which I totally understand. I like a big Hulk. I totally get that idea of Ang Lee's Hulk being so big that it becomes unrealistic. It looks like he's been pasted into the film rather than him existing in the world of the film. They decided on a fixed height for this Hulk at 9 feet tall, and I kind of want to see, do they carry that on throughout the MCU? Because even though they recast, just based on my memory, having not rewatched a lot of these films recently, I think they do keep it at 9 feet. They might make him a tiny bit taller. They might go as far as 10 or 11 feet. But I think they keep it below 15 anyway. So, I always thought it was ILM because they did all of these, but I guess because this is a Universal film and not a Disney film or a Paramount movie, Rhythm and Hughes did the animation for the Hulk and the Abomination in this movie. This is before just ILM just did everything. I mean, there's two big companies now, right? It's ILM and it's Weta. So, seeing this company that I'd never heard of before, trying out these kind of new techniques for capturing the animation for these big, literally larger than life characters, it was really interesting because they seemed really excited about it. They used this, at the time, very new experimental form of facial capture for the Hulk and the Abomination. It's called MOVA, where they kind of paint this stuff onto the actor's face. So instead of doing 60 dots all over the face, and then they make the movements, and then they make the movements in the computer, this is painting on this, kind of highlighted paint stuff. There'll be pictures to go with this, obviously. And then the actors do the movements with the faces, so instead of having 60 dots and trying to recreate a face through that, you have millions of dots. And you can just capture it, and then translate it directly to a computer, and then animate it. So it can look like exact, not just, stringing together, like connecting 60 dots like it's a fucking children's activity book. There was concern though, because it was kind of the first time that this had happened, possibly in any superhero movie really, where the entire climactic battle is two CGI characters fighting. Now, they're a dime a dozen, alright? You got Venom doing it. You got every MCU movie doing it. You got DC movies doing it. We're all doing it. James Gunn's doing it. So, there was concern about this in 2008, CGI is in a stage where sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's not so good at all, especially capturing, like, real people, not like Transformers or anything else. Like, we're not talking about like Davy Jones, where it looks so unhuman that when the CGI isn't so great, it's not noticeable. It still looks amazing. These are two very human looking characters fighting for 30 minutes at the end, and that can be risky. If it doesn't work, the audience is checked out immediately. For the Abomination, they wanted him to be uglier and have more kind of protrusions, and they also made him taller by 2 feet, so he is 11 feet tall compared to the Hulk's 9 feet tall, which does make him more imposing, and you can see that in the climactic battle, that he is a bit more imposing, he's a bit bigger. There's a quote from one of the animators, like one of the lead animators, is so funny, but it makes a whole lot of sense as well. The Hulk is a steel ball, the Abomination is a cubic triangle. Now, I get that. I understand it. But also, what does that mean? Like, I get that because I've seen it, but you can see in the behind the scenes sometimes Leterrier is just like, what do you mean a steel ball? Like, you look at it in the movie and you're like, okay, I can see where he's coming from, right? The Hulk is kind of rounded and he's kind of small and, like, kind of stocky, whereas the Abomination is taller, more kind of angled and got the protrusions and stuff. But a steel ball and a cubic triangle, what do you know? So Tim Roth and another stunt performer worked on the Abomination's movements. So Tim Roth did some of it, and then the stunt guy obviously did a lot more of the action-heavy movements for the Abomination, doing the motion capture for it. And again, love seeing Tim Roth in the behind the scenes, because he's just so out of his element. Like, the only thing I can actually think off the top of my head that he's in before this is Pulp Fiction. Those are the kinds of movies he's doing. Like, he's doing, like, small-time, like, crime movies, dramas, that kind of thing. He's not used to doing a CGI action thriller. And another quote from Tim Roth that I just love in this movie is, he described making this film as a high-tech version of old-school theatre. Especially when it came to the motion capture performance. Because it's kind of true. Like, for theatre, you have to play up your movements, and everything has to be exaggerated, and you have to use your hands and your body a lot more. Because the guy all the way in the back isn't going to see the subtleties of your face when you're acting out. Like, you need to go bigger and larger so that the dude in the back row who paid like $3 for his ticket can see what you're doing and see the emotions, and it's all played up and stuff. And that's kind of similar with motion capture. You really have to play it up. Like, no one's going to watch a motion capture of Tim Roth just like standing there like doing nothing, like he's waiting for a train. You got to play it up, and you have to be larger than life. At least in this era. Now you just CGI anything. But getting into the more real stuff in the filming of this, it seemed to be quite a fun production on set. They had some hiccups when they shot in Rio. It rained for like 2 or 3 out of the 5 days that they had to shoot the scenes. So things got a little bit, tight in terms of scheduling. But nobody ever seemed to be like pissed off or anything like that. It was just, well, shit, we will do as much as we can and get what we can. And everybody seemed to be having fun. And they talk a lot about the factory set for the bottling factory. That was an actual factory that was set to be demolished at some point. So they used it as a movie set. You see that kind of thing happen sometimes with movies. Buildings that are set to be demolished. I think the hospital in The Dark Knight was going to be demolished anyway. So they used it for the explosion in the movie. And an interesting use of like just time and money management is that the underground area of that factory was actually used for the military bunker. So they just built that set under that other set, and it works. You never really get the sense that those sets are actually the same building. And finally, the more realistic stuff of the Harlem fight, because this isn't two CGI guys in a CGI, street. They filmed a real street and pasted the CGI guys in there, which is really cool. It takes place in Harlem, obviously. The Terrier wanted that kind of iconic backdrop, you know, with the Apollo Theatre and everything. But they actually filmed in Toronto. They closed off a street in Toronto. They did like scout Harlem to plan it out, but they could not close off one of the biggest streets in New York, one of the most busy streets in New York, for a week to shoot this action scene. So they filmed it in Toronto, they recreated it. And I love this quote from the Terrier as well. They wanted the Harlem fight to be the biggest bar brawl in history. So this is very much like two drunk dudes having a punch up, which, by the way, as an Irishman who has been outside at night, two drunk guys having a punch up is way less impressive than the fight in this movie. But then again, this is supposed to be the biggest, most intense bar brawl in cinema, so I totally get making it a bit more fluid than that. They also wanted to feature the size and scale of the Hulk and Abomination on screen, you know, with the boxing glove cars and all that kind of thing. And also, this is just a little tidbit as well, Leterrier apparently loves these things called poppers, which is basically a teeny little like grenade thing that explodes and sends like a cloud of fire up into the air. And he did that a lot for some reason. I guess he just loves explosions. And that is it for my behind the scenes knowledge of the Incredible Hulk. Obviously I didn't cover everything, and some retrospective stuff from after the film was released I didn't include here. I like to just talk about the film as it was in production and then the film itself as it came out. And I might go back and talk about, you know, the decision to recast Edward Norton with Mark Ruffalo when I talk about the Avengers, but this is just some of the behind the scenes information. I didn't cover everything because some of it is just like we recreated the helicopter crashing in some backlot somewhere. I didn't think that was that interesting for a YouTube video, but you can look at all of that. It's really impressive to see, and you know, them figuring out big CGI characters in 2008, because this wasn't like a cut and dry method yet. Now let's talk about my review of The Incredible Hulk from 2008. What did I think of this film, rewatching it for probably the 10th time? Because I really liked this movie as a kid, and as a teenager growing up, I've always liked this one. I know it's at the bottom of a lot of people's MCU rankings, but to be honest, I love all the Phase 1 movies, as you'll come to see in future videos. And I think that this movie has a lot going for it. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. This movie loves the 70s Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk show. Like, a lot. Lou Ferrigno obviously cameos. Bill Bixby is on the television at some point in another show because he had passed away at this point. It plays the theme, the sad walking away theme, like just full on. It's in the fucking score for the film on Spotify as well. They do the "you wouldn't like me when I'm angry" thing. They play a little bit of a joke on it, which I actually quite like. I don't actually hate any of this. I just found it to be really egregious on this watch. And the origin story is literally exactly the same. They film it the same. It's the same process. This is why I think they kind of... Like, I have no proof of this. I'm not sure has anybody said it at any point, but I think this was kind of meant to be a sequel to the 70s show. Like, that's what they kind of wanted to do. Make it kind of the successor to that, or like a kind of pseudo sequel to it, even though it doesn't make sense because, you know, the movie takes place in 2008. But yeah, it was interesting to see how this film loves the 70s show, but at the same time I love the 70s show, so I don't really mind. Like, it's fine. You know, I really like that show and I love Bill Bixby, so it's nice to see him on a television and you know, like do the DiCaprio meme where you point at the TV and go, "That's the guy." So, you know. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about what I think of this film in general. I think it's very well shot, very well directed, and very well acted. The acting is probably the best part of the whole film. But unfortunately, it is written and edited to be really nothing more than a fun action thriller. People obviously talk about some of the deleted scenes, like, I don't know if I can say it, but Bruce Banner... Like, the original, I think, version of the opening scene was going to be Bruce Banner in the Arctic trying to off himself, and they referenced that in the Avengers and stuff, so that obviously did happen, but they cut that out because, again, I think they just did not want to make the same mistake that they did with the Ang Lee film. A big criticism of that film at the time was that it focused too much on the trauma, how depressing it'd be to be Bruce Banner. But, again, the name of the game here is fun. I think Norton acts this character out really, really well, and I think he does a great job because he does a great job in every film that he's in. But unfortunately, and this might be a function of the editing as well, he's not really giving it his all. I don't think he really sells the depression and the desperation of being Bruce Banner, trying to rid himself of this anger and this disease that is constantly welling up inside of him. We get a bit of that early on with the flower scene, which I really love. He's working with that guy with the weird diaphragm and like he's watching Sesame Street and stuff, but I just feel like, especially as the movie goes on, again, we're going back to being, well, he's a fun superhero protagonist. He's more of a Peter Parker without the hard edge. And again, a lot of the Hulk stuff, like the Hulk out moments and things like that, which they talk about a lot in the behind the scenes as well, but I didn't cover a lot of that because it's more about the scene rather than the actual hulking out. But again, a lot of these hulking out moments, it's about the action. It's not really about like the body horror of it. We get one great scene where it is that, and I wish that they'd gone further with that kind of stuff. It'd be a horrific body horror thing to turn into the Hulk. And I'll talk about how I like that aspect of it in a minute. But I feel like in a lot of cases, the Hulk stuff in this is just badass, which is good. I like the Hulk being badass and being an action guy, but can we sell a bit more of how painful it must be to be going through that? You know, rather than just, well, he kicks the guy and he falls out of the helicopter and he does the Hulk smash thing and he does the thunderclap and the boxing gloves and all that kind of thing. However, talking about the transformations itself, I do love a lot of that. It feels like an old monster movie, which is my fucking bread and butter. Anybody who's been watching this channel for a long time, the three of you that are probably out there, comment down below. I love how it feels like an old school monster movie, like a Wolfman or American Werewolf in London. I think they definitely went for that. And again, I wish they went harder with that. Maybe because they just haven't in future MCU movies, so I'm clinging on to this movie for dear life to give me some good Hulk stuff. Give me more American Werewolf in London style Hulk transformations, like the one in Stern's lab. I think Tim Roth plays Emil Blonsky very, very well, and I like what he's doing with it, but again, they don't go far enough with it. I like this character in concept, this guy who's become obsessed with the power that the Hulk wields, and thinking that he can harness it better because he's like this trained soldier or whatever. I don't think they lean into that hard enough, to be honest. I feel like it's just, well, you know, he's playing it that way, but it's not written like that. And it's edited down so that we can't see any introspective moments of Emil lusting over this power and thinking that he can rise above it. I'm going to be repeating myself a lot, I feel here, but again, not Betty Brant, that's Spider-Man, Betty Ross. I think Betty Ross is good and Liv Tyler plays it really well, but I don't get enough of what Norton describes in the behind the scenes of looking at the Hulk and still seeing Bruce. I think we do get some of that throughout, like in little snippets, but I wanted more. I wanted the same kind of thing you see between Jennifer Connelly, excuse me, and Eric Bana. I wanted more of that. Her looking at him and seeing past that and being able to calm him down. They just give that to Black Widow later on in the MCU. So, once again, I'm clinging on to this movie for good Hulk stuff. Why don't we see Betty Ross ever again? Why is she only hinted at with Harrison Ford in fucking new Captain America? I know why, it's a rights thing, right? Yeah, it's universal. William Hurt, once again, carries very poor writing. I don't get the sense, really, through the dialogue or the writing, or we don't get any introspective moments with him either, where he's hating this character. The only real evidence we get as to why is in the very fast-paced opening credit scenes where we see kind of the first ever Hulk out, and beyond that, it's really just an angry military man yelling. But as I said, the direction I think is really good, and there's a great style to this movie. This movie does feel like a gritty action thriller mixed with kind of an old school monster movie, and I think that definitely carries this movie. It's probably why I've enjoyed this movie so much up to this point. I feel like I've ragged on this one a lot. I do like this. I really do like this movie. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a decent Hulk movie. Ang Lee's is probably a bit better in some ways. In terms of selling the character itself, like the Jekyll and Hyde Hulk, I think Ang Lee sells it a bit better, but I think Leterrier You know, he made a gritty action thriller, and he tried to inject as much of the actual Hulk stuff as possible, as did Edward Norton, as we can tell. Yeah, I think it works for the most part. I just wish that there was more. I wish it kind of slowed down sometimes. You know, I know I said I liked the momentum, and I do, but maybe slow down and pause the momentum for a little bit to just give us a little bit more of these characters just existing and feeling their feelings rather than just jumping straight to the next scene. This movie definitely feels like each scene is just as long as it needs to be to carry the plot, but not long enough to carry these characters. Quickly, I feel like I need to mention this every time because I'm a huge film music guy. I love listening to scores for these films, and I've been listening to this Hulk score in work and stuff like that, so I feel like I need to just mention the score. I don't really have any organic way to fit it in here because there's no real behind the scenes information on it, but yes, I think the whole score, I can't think of the guy's name at the moment. His name will go up here, but I do really like this score. I think it works. It feels like a monster movie, like I've mentioned earlier on with some of the scenes. And again, they throw that sad walking away theme in there, which, I mean, again, I know I kind of said it as a negative, but I do like how it kind of references the 70s show purely just because I just like it. Like, that's a good piece of music, and I like that they put it in here in one of the only kind of true introspective moments with Bruce Banner when he's sort of on the come down from becoming the Hulk. It's like he's like an addict almost that's coming down, like it's like he's severely hung over or something from being the Hulk, which I think is also an interesting idea that they don't go far enough with. So with a budget of $150 million, a lot of money went into this, but you know, the Hulk has proven in the past to be a very profitable character. This movie made $264 million worldwide, which is not a bunch. $264 million. That is not a lot of money for a big blockbuster like this. To be fair, this is the back half of 2008, and we got Iron Man, big success, shockingly. Like, I know that we all know now, like, it's obvious why it was a big success, but at the time, this was no guarantee. Batman, you know, The Dark Knight, that movie, Indiana Jones 4. 2008 was a big fucking year, guys, for movies, you know, a lot of stuff. Mamma Mia came out in 2008 on the same day as The Dark Knight. What the fuck? You know, big year. So, The Incredible Hulk kind of fell by the wayside, and I think people were kind of thinking, is the Hulk popular anymore, or is this going to just be like the Ang Lee film where it's weird and long and boring and edited intensely. So I can totally understand why the box office return for this movie was not so great, but nevertheless, we got that scene at the end with Tony Stark walking into that bar, talking about putting together a team. He's got his big bell-bottom trousers on, and yeah, I guess we're gearing up for a cinematic universe here, guys. So sorry if the lighting in this video is a bit ass. I reckon I started filming at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's like 5:30 nearly. So the sun has kind of been going down the entire time. So I apologize if the lighting in this video is a bit shit. The next video will be fixed, hopefully. With all that being said, guys, that's been The Incredible Hulk. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I guess we'll come back with Iron Man 2 in the near future. That video is written. I'm excited to talk about Iron Man 2 because I love Iron Man 2. And I am actually really excited about this MCU retrospective. I was not sure about doing this at all. I've been thinking about it for about 6 months, I think. Thinking about doing this, and I bit the bullet and started it with the Iron Man video. Guys, give this like a video if you liked it. Comment below, let me know your thoughts on The Incredible Hulk, let me know your thoughts on the Kinospective as it's trucking along, doing amazingly, as I said, and come back very soon for Iron Man 2. I hope you all have a great day, guys. I'll see you at the movies.